Good afternoon. I want to welcome you to our Tuesday virtual group. And today we're going to be talking about channeling your inner vegetable and getting the most from the season's best. So with that, I hope you're all ready to learn more about your vegetables than you thought you would in an hour or less. Let's start with the agenda. So some of the things that we're going to talk about today are, I'm going to give you a vegetable overview, including some health benefits. We're going to talk about phytochemicals, who, what, and where, how to purchase your vegetables, some great vegetable hacks, what does it mean to be organic, talking about preparation, and some storage tips. I also have a number of handouts for you that I think are going to be kind of come in kind of handy. So we'll go over those as well as time goes on. All right. So let's talk a little bit about produce and how it can benefit you. So current research suggests that vegetables, as well as fruit, plays a protective role in the prevention of coronary heart disease, as well as growing evidence for protective role in stroke. There is some emerging support for vegetables in the prevention of cataract formation, COPD, diverticulosis, and possibly hypertension. And these are all, stroke, hypertension, cataracts, diverticulosis. These are all things that are health related, and meaning that you have a certain amount of control through dietary and lifestyle issues that you could control that. Okay, so just thinking in terms of how can I reduce my risk for some of these, it's just the everyday things you do and the choices that you make. Consuming as little as 2.5 servings a day of vegetables shows that there was a steady reduction in these conditions. Now, when we talk about a serving, that means 1 cup cooked, 2 cups raw of vegetables, and that counts as 2 servings. So it's just something to keep in mind. And for those of you who are familiar with our essentials plans, as well as if you're having at least 1 meal through Optifast, this will sound very familiar. We are always encouraging you to have more of your non-starchy vegetables. Okay, so I also want to give, for some additional context, some convincing evidence for the health benefits that I just talked about. So according to the American Institute for Cancer Research, it's estimated that diets high in fruits and vegetables, more than 3 cups a day, could prevent at least 20% of all cancer incidents. And in the U.S., cancer is the second leading cause of death after heart disease. So this could be reduced by 20 to 40%. And I think that's pretty significant and something that we probably should take into account. And the data is convincing enough that if you were kind of taking a pause here and struggling about getting those non-starchy vegetables in, I think hopefully you'll be thinking twice after this and finding some really interesting ways that you can incorporate them into your day. All right, so when we're talking about phytochemicals, I know, are any of you familiar with this? I'm not saying you have to know what it means, but have any of you heard this term before, phytochemical, and wonder what it is that we're talking about? And if you know, by all means, share what you know about that. Who's Dr. Gundry? I think. Just curious, Janet. I'm not familiar. Oh, plant paradox. Okay. I'll share with you. I will keep it. I'll try to keep it as simple as possible. So phytochemicals are naturally occurring plant chemicals that provide the plants with their color, odor, and flavor. Okay. However, once we eat them, they actually can influence the chemical processes inside our bodies. to do a number of really beneficial things, like stimulating the immune system, blocking substances we eat, drink, and breathe from becoming cancerous, reducing the kind of inflammation that makes cancer growth more likely, slowing the growth rate of cancer cells, and helping to regulate hormones. So clearly, these phytochemicals, these plant chemicals, are really beneficial to our health and wellness. And what I will say to you is, when you're thinking about vegetables and how do I know if I'm getting phytochemicals, just think the brighter, the better. Okay? And also eating a rainbow. That will help ensure that you're getting a lot of phytochemicals. All right. Now, I also wanted to include a chart because I thought that this would be really helpful when we're trying to figure out, okay, where should I get these from and what do they do? So I just want to go through this briefly so that you kind of understand where and the what. So for instance, something called carotenoids. I'm sure you all heard of beta carotene and probably lycopene too, as well as lutein and zeaxanthin. Now, you can get those from red, orange, and green vegetables, including things like broccoli, carrots, cooked tomatoes, leafy greens, sweet potatoes, winter squash, and pumpkin. Right? And what they do is they inhibit cancer cell growth, and they work as antioxidants, or what we call the disease fighters, to improve your immune system. So I'm sure that now that you're seeing where they're coming from, you're going, I've been eating those every day for forever, which is great. Then we have another phytochemical called flavonoids, and that's in anthocyanins and quercetin. So you'll find those in red, purple, and blue vegetables, including beets, eggplant, and red cabbage. And those protect against heart disease. They can aid in immunity and boost the production of those disease fighters or antioxidants. Okay. Next, we have something called indoles, and those are found in broccoli, cabbage, collard greens, kale, cauliflower, and Brussels sprouts. And again, it goes back to eliminating cancer-causing agents from the body, limiting the production of cancer-related hormones, and blocking cancerous cells and preventing tumor growth. And then we have something called allium, which comes from garlic, onions, shallots, and leeks. And those also contain antioxidants, which can reduce inflammation and lower cholesterol. So how many of you had any idea that what you've probably been eating forever was doing all this beneficial stuff in your bodies and you didn't even know it? Nobody? I mean, I think sometimes it's pretty, well, okay, I'm glad that some of you are typing that you did have an idea about these. I think it's important because we want to make sure that you continue this great habit, and sometimes knowing how beneficial they are as far as long-term health can go a long way in helping to build that habit and sustain it. Interesting question, Robbie. So why cooked tomatoes versus raw? The cooking helps bring out some of the chemicals. It's from the heat, actually. It's not to say that you should only eat them cooked, but it does bring out more of the lycopene that's in it. So just another way to get more bang for your nutritional buck, as it were. My thoughts on peeling and de-seeding tomatoes. I'm not a big fan personally. I think it's added fiber, which I think is a good thing. So for me, I don't do that. If I were making something where I didn't need the seeds in it, if I were trying to make like a little boat out of it and I'm going to scoop the innards out, that would be one case. But I think as far as daily consumption, no, that's all part of the fiber and the goodness that is a tomato. So I don't do that. Sure. Okay. Okay, so let's talk about getting your pick of the produce. So here are some best, I wanted to include some best pick tips. All right. Obviously, choose carefully. So avoid vegetables with cuts and bruises, insect holes, mold, or decay of any kind. At the same time, vegetables do not need to be perfect to taste great. All shapes and sizes are great. So there's a difference between what we may call ugly produce. And sometimes in supermarkets or farmers markets, you'll find that it's reduced because it's not as pretty, perhaps, as some of the others. That's very different from buying vegetables that are clearly on their way out or have already degraded and really shouldn't even be consumed. Okay, so that's the point I want to stress there. Fresh may not always be the best. So fresh produce is best when bought in season and locally for maximum flavor and nutrition, and we're also supporting our local farmers that way. And research shows that frozen vegetables are just as nutritious as fresh, and they have less waste. So just keeping in mind, obviously, there's a benefit and a certain enjoyment with fresh versus frozen, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's all you should have and anything else is inferior. So keeping in mind that when vegetables are chosen for freezing or canning, they are picked at the peak of ripeness. And that is, especially with frozen, that's frozen right in. So you are getting something that's just as fresh and has the same amount of nutrients as fresh. Canned is a little bit different because they're adding in salted water to preserve it. So next best thing, but frozen, I would say, is right up there with fresh. Okay? All right. Be mindful when buying canned, though, as I just said. So while nutritious, they often have salt added and nutrients that can be lost in the canning process. So rinse and drain your sodium and drop the sodium by 41%. It's that simple. So I think that's a great tip to keep in mind. If you are buying canned, just rinse it and drain it, and you can get rid of 41% of the salt. All right, other best pick tips. Buy fresh frequently and use as soon as possible. So select vegetables that are crisp and colorful, not limp and starting to turn brown. Select vegetables that are in season. Clean and cut them yourself. Prep ahead of time and keep refrigerated for ease and convenience. Also look for pre-washed and pre-cut veggies if time is of the essence. Then certainly worth the extra money you'll pay for that. Think in terms of chopped peppers and onions, grated carrots and cabbage slaw for ready-to-cook options and being real time savers. Another thought about frozen vegetables, they keep for up to 6 months in the freezer. So, and I like to share with patients when they talk about struggling with meal prep, sometimes, it's okay to have backup plans. I mean, I think you should plan for a backup plan. And one way you can do that, especially when we're highlighting the importance of non-starchy vegetable intake, is to use those steamer bags, frozen bags of vegetables, and just have them. They hold for 6 months. So buy yourself several bags and just keep that inventory in the freezer. And while we're on this page, and we are coming up into summer, and this is gardening time, I want to ask, how many of you have gardens or have had one in the past? And maybe you'd like to just share what kind of vegetables or spices, herbs, things that you've grown. I would love to know. It's a great time to do that and get yourself back in gardening, great form of exercise. So what are some of the things that you guys are growing? Oh, I love it. Tomatoes, cucumbers, basil, peppers, thyme. Oh, that's awesome. And very inspiring, I might add, because once you grow it, you must use it. So always finding unique ways to add them into meals. I got good use out of my herb garden, but I think it was limited just because it was sitting in my sunroom as opposed to being outside. So um, I've now moved on, but I did get plenty of use out of my herbs that were in my little herb garden. I love them. And what kinds of things are you doing with these fresh vegetables? Because I think when you pick them out of your garden, they do taste different than when you're getting them through a supermarket, let's say. Um, oh, share with me some of your inspirations. Oh, nice. Okay, chives to broth. Cool. Um, Time to chicken. Yeah, delicious. Oh, yeah, you make your own pesto. I'm getting hungry. I'm just saying. And I would assume this is a great way to get you to cook more because now you've grown it yourself. Um, or I should hope so. I find that stuff inspirational because I don't want to waste it. So it always puts meal prep back in the picture if I start to get a little tired. Oh, nice. Cilantro is great with red onion and diced tomato for low sodium salsa. Very good. Nice, Janet. Well, thank you guys for sharing. I love to hear what other folks are doing. All right, so and I like this as a picture because I didn't know this beforehand, so I thought that this was kind of cool. So other best pick tips. So your leafy greens, broccoli, and carrots should be crisp and firm. Any sign of wilting or discoloring signals it may be past its prime. And in another couple of slides, we're going to get to vegetable hacks, and you'll see how we can address that issue. But there is a way to address it. Avoid anything that has sprouted when it shouldn't, like potatoes, onion, garlic, or ginger. Now, this one, again, I found interesting, and I always noticed it, but I never really thought about it. White mushrooms should be closed. So look at the stem pointing up. The mushroom should still be closed to the stem. When they open and they reveal the brown underside, they age quicker. I didn't know that. Not that you can't eat them, not that it's dangerous, but just interesting to know when you're buying them, oh, these are fresh, these are getting a little old. So, yeah, I thought it was kind of cool. Did not know that. Okay, eggplants are usually light purple when they are fresh and they darken more as they ripen. Near black eggplants are at the end of their premium shelf life. How many of you have gone to a farmer's market or you've gone to the supermarket and when you've gone to get eggplant, you're looking for the ones that are like the deepest purple? I did not know that that meant that they're at the end of their shelf life because usually that's all I see. So again, I thought in putting this group together today, I was like, oh, that's interesting. I did not know that. So just something to think about. Ginger should be smooth with smaller pinkish bulbs. Vegetables are best, as again, we've said this like 3 times now, when they're in season because that's when they are most affordable. Okay, for some, supporting local industry and not having vegetables travel too far is also an important consideration. Will these slides be available for download? If not, I will check with Josh on that, our director of telehealth, and I will make them available. So I will double check, but no problem. We can add that as well. And last thing to think about, variety. Okay, I said this earlier, eat the rainbow. Make sure to choose a variety of vegetable colors so that you will get all of your nutritional needs because no one color gets all the nutrients that you need. Janet, what'd you say? Broccoli in stores has been terrible lately. I know, you have to watch what's in the stores, right? You know, and depending on where they're getting it from, it could have been in a refrigerated cart for days, and then they're storing it in refrigeration. So it starts to, you know, degrade over time. It's not going to be something that's fresh picked or something you're going to find at a farmer's market or out of your own garden. So yeah, something to keep in mind. Now, I also want to point out to you that I have a number of handouts that are available, and one of them is the North Carolina What's in Season. I think it says North Carolina Seasonal Produce Chart. So I want you all, when you have a chance, to take a look at that, because I think now with us being in prime farmers market season, it's always good to have that to say what is growing in my own state and what particular things should I give some attention to. Okay, because I know some, but not all farmers markets are local. Some are getting them from elsewhere, and so I think I've been told, to kind of watch for that, and something to keep in mind. Okay, now I thought this was really cool. This is getting your pick of the produce. So these are two apps that I found online that I hope you will all take a look at. So one of them is called In Season, Eat Better, Shop Smarter. That's the first one on the left. So this automatically detects where, and these are free apps, by the way. So it automatically detects where you are in the world, and it'll bring up produce available and the months it's in season, as well as links to recipes. Granted, you may have to modify them if you choose to utilize this option, but I think it's a really nice touch. And if you want, you can pay an extra 99 cents to have the ads from the app removed. But if that doesn't matter to you, then you can just download it for free. And it's a really great resource. And I have both of these now downloaded on my phone. They're really cool. The second one I wanted to show you is called the Seasonal Food Guide app. And this is a free app that tells you what's in season state by state. So it shows you a picture of the food that you're interested in. And if you click on the pics, it gives you the months it's in season as well as quick tips for purchasing. So you can set reminders also on your phone calendar, as well as asking you if you want to set a shopping reminder for them. And you can also tap on a button that says Learn and Cook, which not only sends you to a page about how to cook it, but a brief history, characteristics, and like nutrition information. So, and there are recipes attached to it as well. So that's another really great option. And again, they're free. So why not give them a shot? Okay, I want to share that resource with you. All right, so here we go. The vegetable hacks. I wanted to include this because I thought it was important. Produce is not cheap, whether you're buying it in a supermarket or you're buying it at the farmer's market. And so sometimes what happens is we have something, the best of intentions, we buy all this really great stuff, we put it in the fridge, and then days later, because we're so inundated with our best efforts of wanting to utilize all this great food, that some of it has started to go limp. And we're like, oh, now I have to throw it out. But you don't have to throw it out. And that's what these vegetable hacks are about. So I've listed, I don't know, maybe 10 here, of some common vegetables, and if they start to kind of go meh, how you can bring them back to life, basically, is what I'm showing you. So for asparagus, you can cut 3/4 of an inch from the bottom of the spear, refrigerate it 1 hour, and store it in up to 2 inches of water, and it will come back to life again. All right, and I've done that for broccoli, carrots, celery, green beans, green curly kale, the lacatino or dinosaur kale, romaine and other hardier lettuces, spinach, and Swiss chard. So I hope that you will take a look at it. They're more or less the same about being in cold water and cutting off part of the ends to refresh it. But I think this is a really great way to kind of pick your produce that's gotten a little limp and tired in the fridge that you don't have to, necessarily throw it out. Okay. Repeat the first one about asparagus, Beryl. Is that what you need? just want to make sure I'm understanding. No, the first step. Oh, okay. Well, I can go back real quick. Let me just go back here. Okay. So the first one on the left there, that orange one, is called In Season, Eat Better, Shop Smarter. And so the green little icons there, that's what it would look like in the App Store. And then the second one is Seasonal Food Guide app. And again, I've provided what the icon looks like. Okay. Okay. So should asparagus be stored in water? Hold on, I'm losing my questions. Asparagus, I'm losing the question here. Should asparagus be stored in water 2 inches in the refrigerator to keep it fresh? I don't think you have to. No, I mean, it'll stay if it's pretty hardy in general. Asparagus will keep a couple of days in the fridge without getting limp, several days actually. But I think this is more for if you notice that you haven't used it and it's getting limp, then cut some off the bottom and put it in 2 inches of water, and that will bring it back in a matter of probably an hour or two, maybe even less. So no, you don't. But you definitely do not have to store them in water. No. Okay. All right. Something else I thought as I was doing research for this group, I kind of thought I was running across organic, and I know in the past this topic has come up, thinking somehow that organic is better, than the standard method of growing food. And I think in some cases it is, depending on the type of produce we're talking about, more delicate produce, because maybe it's more difficult to wash with that, like berries. They're very delicate, so that's something that you kind of want to think about, maybe getting organic so you don't have to worry about, did I get all the residue off, things like that. But still, I think it's important, also from just a personal perspective, people just, may feel more comfortable subscribing to organic, just for a number of reasons. So I thought it was important to broach. So what does it mean to be organic? So the term organic has very specific guidelines defined by the USDA. Organic plant foods are produced without using most conventional pesticides, fertilizers, and they're made with synthetic ingredients, fertilizers made with synthetic ingredients, or bioengineering or ionizing radiation. Right? Government-approved certifier must inspect the farm to ensure these standards are met. Additionally, there are USDA standards for organic handling and processing. So very specific what that means. No farmer can just throw an organic label on their food. So I just want to be specific about that. Now, there are different levels of organic claims on food labels, so I wanted to kind of go through these three. When it says it's 100% organic, these are products that are completely organic or made of only organic ingredients, and they will have this USDA organic seal on it. When something says it's organic, these are products in which at least 95% of its ingredients are organic and qualify for this USDA organic seal. Lastly, we have made with organic ingredients, which says these are food products in which at least 70% of the ingredients are certified organic. The USDA organic seal cannot be used, but made with organic ingredients may appear on its packaging. So I just think that for those of you who are interested or right now purchase organic produce, I think this is just this gives you a clear understanding of exactly what you're purchasing. And I think being a mindful consumer and an informed consumer is the best consumer. How many of you purchase organic products now? Anybody? Oh, a lot of you. Okay. And I'm just curious, why? What makes you what makes you want to purchase or consider purchasing? Because I think that's important too. People do it for different reasons. Oh, organic berries go bad quicker. Okay. Freeze a lot. Yeah. And I guess organic berries would go quicker, just because there's nothing on them that's kind of keeping keeping bacteria away like with conventional fertilizer. So, okay. Yeah, not wanting to ingest pesticides, sure. And I don't think there's no right or wrong answer. I mean, I just think this is personal, preference. But I'm always just curious to know, like, why, what gets people's interest piqued with organic. Um, yeah, Helen, I agree with you. I think people do think it's healthier, and I think in some regards it is, and we're going to touch on that a little bit more in a second. I also agree with Janet. The added cost isn't always worth on either side of the argument. Is produce is just not inexpensive anywhere. Okay, well, so I don't know if any of you have heard of this. So this is called the dirt. There's a list that comes out by a group called EWG, the Environmental Working Group. And every year they come out with their list of what they call the Dirty Dozen. They do it for vegetables and for fruit. I pulled out the vegetables, and they show you those items that are the highest in pesticides and the ones that you should avoid based on the amount of pesticides that are used to grow these things. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to attempt to click in to give you the full list to show you. So give me a moment, and hopefully I will do this right and not lose you. All right. Oh, let's see. All right, hold on. All right, I'm going to try this again. Let me see. Give me one more chance to try it, and then if it doesn't work, I don't think that's going to work. Oh. All right. All right. All right. So this is the Environmental Working Group's 2018 shopping guide. So we're going to go first here to the Dirty 12. So this shows you, with regard to fruits and vegetables, which ones you should be concerned about unless you're going to buy them organically. And this is, again, all due to how much pesticide they use. So the Environmental Working Group is a nonprofit organization dedicated to protecting the health and environment through research and education. And every year they put out their list of the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15, highlighting produce with the most pesticides as well as those with the fewest. So let's see. If we go down, this is, all right. So we're looking at nectarines, apples, and for instance, if we click into, let me stick with fruit first, vegetables, so spinach. So I'm going to let you on your own take a look at this, but I just to highlight, it's saying that this year, 2018, spinach samples contained residue that was in relatively high concentrations, and then they're listing the actual pesticide. So this is just a really kind of cool reference guide for those of you who buy a lot of organic produce. Which ones might be better for you to steer clear of this year, as opposed to embrace in the Clean 15, which we'll take a look at in a second. So you can see celery and tomatoes are also on the list, potatoes, sweet bell peppers, and hot peppers. And see if we can get over to the Clean 15 really quickly. Here's the list here. And these are the ones that have the least amount of pesticides. We're looking at sweet corn, cabbage, onions, sweet peas, asparagus. There's our eggplants, cauliflower, and broccoli. Okay, so just wanted to provide a reference, and they're a really great organization to kind of check in with on that. Okay, so we're back. So anyway, I hope that you found that part interesting. Here I am. Yeah, Janet, so if you were able to click on it and the information comes up on a website, it's a little bit different than when I'm trying to do it through our system here, but I wanted to give that to you again as another resource so you can be the most informed consumer you can be when it comes to vegetables and your produce in general, and certainly if you're interested in buying organic, what is the Dirty Dozen and like the Clean 15. So now, I don't want you to think that this means that you should stop buying traditional produce and only go organic. I think buying non-organic produce is completely safe, providing that you wash it thoroughly and remove any dirt or residue. All right, so it's not like something's going to happen to you. I think this is just good basic food preparation that you just need to keep in mind about really thoroughly cleaning your produce. All right. Move on. All right, so let's talk about preparation. The nutritional content of vegetables, as well as their taste and texture, is affected by how you cook them. So some guidelines that I'd like you to keep in mind. Nutrient loss occurs when veggies are exposed to light and air. So don't wash, chop, or slice them until you're ready to use them. Right? Long soaking can cause precious water-soluble vitamins to leach out into the water. So unless you're going to be drinking that water, it's not a great idea. Quickly rinse under cold running water or dunking them in several changes of water. That's fine to clean it with. And also use a soft brush to remove dirt that clings. Lukewarm water can also help release sand and grit from leafy vegetables. Okay. Some other things when you're preparing, when peeling and chopping vegetables, keep in mind that many of the nutrients are concentrated just below the skin. So if possible, don't peel the veggies like potatoes or beets. Cook them in their skins and then peel after the cooking. Especially like with beets, if you boil them, if you peel them first and throw them in, they lose all their color. And the nutrients those phytochemicals are fading away and they're going in the water. So unless you're going to drink that water you cooked them in, you're going to lose a lot of those precious nutrients. And in general, cook until what we call crisp tender, kind of like the al dente of produce, as they'll retain most of their nutrition, bright colors, and flavors. Robbie, you're asking, how do you balance don't chop or slice until I'm ready to use versus do meal prep in advance? Okay, well, the day before, for example, if you're prepping them a day before, I think that's fine. If you're doing them 3 or 4 days out, especially with fresh produce, probably not the best option because they're going to lose something in the process. Especially, you got to be careful when you're using fresh vegetables. They don't have a long shelf life, especially once you cut them open because they're exposed to air. Even if you wrap them in plastic wrap, it's still porous. So oxidation starts to occur, and then it starts breaking down. So it'll start to get mushy. It may start to get like watery and break down. So I think meal prep ahead of time, as far as chopping and cooking, and depending on what kind of vegetable is okay, but not so far out in advance. And because produce is delicate, you have to consider how much time you're prepping in advance. It can just impair the produce and what you're trying to do with it. Yeah, I mean, you can leave veggies last. It depends. I don't think there's anything wrong with prepping vegetables ahead of time, but I wouldn't really do them more than a day or two max in advance, and they should be fine. That's all. But I think if you start heading 3 or 4 days out, it's probably going to start to break down too much by the time you're ready to use them, if that helps. Okay. Okay. So another thing that I wanted to talk about is how are some ways that we could prepare vegetables, especially if you are kind of vegetable challenged and may not care for a lot of vegetables, how to make them tastier. Roasting is a great way to do that. Um, Roasting as well as baking are what we call dry heat methods. So they can be used successfully with a thick skin that will retain the water, like potatoes and winter squash, and other vegetables that need oil or moisture or a combination of both to keep them from drying out. Very wet vegetables, like tomatoes, are sometimes roasted in order to partially dehydrate them, which then concentrates the flavor. So I don't know how many of you currently roast vegetables. It's a delicious way to bring out the sweetness in vegetables. So I wanted to provide a little video here that I'd like to show you that kind of gives you the basics of roasting vegetables and how do you do that. So again, be patient with me. That's not what I wanted. Okay. All right, hold on. I'm going to try it again. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Here we go. Okay, so that makes me really want some roasted vegetables right now because they look delicious. Okay, so I hope by you all being able to see that, if you aren't roasting your vegetables now, that that will encourage you and inspire you to want to, because it's such a simple way um, to prepare things and to increase your vegetable intake. So hopefully some of you who are not doing that will be inspired to do so. Um, so moving forward, I want to go through two other methods that I think might be helpful. We have grilling and broiling, and these are high temp dry heat methods that cook vegetables really quickly to preserve their flavor and texture, but also require a little bit of oil to prevent from burning. Olive oil is always great for that. And then we have sauteing or stir frying. Although these methods typically require a great deal more of oil, you can adapt the technique to be more healthful by cooking in a non-stick skillet or wok, and take a little bit of oil and mix it with some water or broth. Okay, so the broth and the natural moisture from the vegetables will help steam the food. So that's kind of an alternative if that's something that interests you. Is coconut oil good to use to give it a different flavor? Well, coconut oil is really great. I mean, it'll definitely give it a nice sweet flavor, very light and gentle sweet. I do use some coconut oil, but I use it really sparingly because coconut oil is a saturated fat, unlike olive oil. So we really want to be careful with those saturated fats, although it has been shown to be cardioprotective, but very, very modestly is what I'm going to say, Mildred. Okay, so yes, but in moderation. In moderation. All right, so let's talk a little bit about storage. All right, the flavor of vegetables are influenced by maturity and quality at harvest, as well as how they are stored afterwards. So we have a number of ways that we can store things. We have countertop storage. So this area should be away from direct sunlight to prevent produce from becoming too warm. Vegetables that are recommended to be stored on the counter can be kept out there for a few days. Now, don't place produce in a sealed bag on the counter, because this may cause the decay to oxidation and build up moisture in the bag. So unless you've got your air conditioning on, you've got your place pretty cool. It's going to get warm, moisture is going to build on the inside, and then moisture is what ends up breaking down the produce much quicker. So cucumbers, peppers, and eggplant, those can be kept in the fridge for 1 to 3 days if they're used soon after they're removed from the refrigerator. Garlic, onions, potatoes, sweet potatoes, they can be stored in a well-ventilated area in the pantry. So that's where we talk about some of that dry storage. Protect potatoes from light to avoid greening. Ginger, jicama, pumpkins, tomatoes, and winter squashes are also in that category. Okay. One other thing I wanted to say about countertop storage, I don't know if this has happened to any of you, it's happened to me, but I start getting fruit flies pretty quickly, which can be kind of gross. So if you start to see fruit flies from keeping anything out on the counter, is to put a little bit of vinegar in a cup or even in a little saucer would work, and leave it out on the counter close to where your exposed produce is, and they're drawn to it, and it'll kill them. And you should get rid of your fruit flies in pretty short order. So just wanted to throw that out there. All right. Some other storage tips: refrigerator storage. Vegetables should be kept in a perforated plastic bag in the produce drawers of the refrigerator. Separate your fruits from your vegetables to minimize the decaying effects of something called ethylene, which is a type of gas that's produced by the fruits onto the vegetables. Okay? Use all refrigerated veggies within a few days, since longer storage results in the loss of freshness and flavor. And just as a side note, it's not necessary to wash your ready-to-eat, pre-washed and packaged fresh cut produce. All right, if it says that it's pre-washed, you don't have to wash it again. Always wash unpackaged prepared salad mixes under running water prior to consuming. Right? Asparagus, green beans, beets, broccoli, carrots, cauliflower, and celery, cut vegetables, green onions, leafy veg, lettuce, mushrooms, radishes, spinach, summer squashes, and corn. Those are all the things that can be kept in the refrigerator and that you definitely want to make sure you are rinsing prior to using. Now, for some inspiration, I know we're getting close to time, so what I'll try to do is I'll try to share some of these with you rather quickly, but and since I'm going to have the slides available for you, you'll be able to link into these if we're not able to really get to them all right now, just due to time constraints. Okay, but let me see how I can get these in for you. Okay. That's not what I wanted. Let's see. All right. Well, I had good luck through most of this. So I'm not going to play around with it too much because I don't want to waste everybody's time and kind of end up going over. So anyway, I'll make sure that these slides are available for you, and then you can just copy and paste these into your browser and you can take a look at them. But these were from All Recipes, deliciouslythin.com, and peaceloveandlowcarb.com were some really cool ways to utilize vegetables as some fun sides. So I wanted you to have those as inspiration. Sorry I couldn't get to that without getting lost. Just wanted to provide you with some resources and a reminder that I've got Keeping Produce Fresher Longer handout for you, a vegetable pairing spice chart, and the North Carolina seasonal produce chart that is available now that you can download and have as reference. And again, I'll talk to Josh about making sure that the slides are available for everybody if you're interested. And with that, I would say if you guys have any final questions or comments that you'd like to share before we bring our virtual group to a conclusion, happy to answer. I will make sure that just the same way in which the handouts are available, Robbie, we'll get the slides to you. Or we may email them. I'm not sure which one we're going to do right now. It may be email, but we'll have everybody who's in the group. We'll have all your contact information, and we'll make sure to get it to you. So no worries. I'm glad you all enjoyed it. I hope there's enough resources for you to channel your inner vegetable and have some fun with seasonal produce. I'm ready for some roasted vegetables, quite honestly. All right, everybody. Again, just hang on so you can. I'm going to bring you to the screen that's got the survey on it. I appreciate if you fill that out. And again, I want to thank all of you for participating in virtual group this week. And take care, okay? And enjoy your vegetables.